The atmosphere aboard the Velzar envoy crackled with tension. It wasn't fear. Not exactly. More like tightly wound curiosity. After millennia of charting the stars, the Velzari Empire had encountered thousands of species. Telepathic scans, cultural exchanges, war declarations, standard protocol. But never a race quite like this one. Humans. They called their world Earth. And while it wasn't their technology that made the Galactic Council hesitate, it was their minds. Incomprehensible. Raw. Guarded like ancient vaults. No telepathic probe had managed to fully penetrate a human's consciousness, not without immediate painful recoil. Protocol was clear. Observe, don't touch. No deep scans, no neural contact. But Ambassador Kareth, the most gifted mind reader among his kind, was too curious, too confident. He had skimmed the thoughts of predators, tyrants, and dying stars. What could one isolated human possibly hide? The Earth delegation was small. 4 scientists, 2 guards, and a military liaison, Sergeant Max Gray. He was tall, quiet, with grey-streaked hair and eyes that never stopped watching. He hadn't spoken much beyond the required pleasantries, but Kareth sensed a silence that wasn't emptiness. It was weight. During a cultural gift exchange, Kareth approached Gray. The others were distracted with technology demonstrations. Kareth extended his 3-fingered hand, bowed politely, and asked in broken Terran tongue, "Permission? Touch?" Max looked at him, longer than comfortable, then nodded once. Contact. Kareth barely brushed the man's skin, initiating the smallest of surface scans. And then it hit him. It was a wall of fire, blinding, roaring, an inferno of noise and blood and memory. Screams torn from throats roar with terror, the smell of burning flesh, metal melting into bone. A battlefield where soldiers crawled through chemical mud, dragging shattered limbs toward hopeless lines. Kareth tried to retreat, but the current pulled him deeper. Not just trauma, awareness. Gray knew the pain, remembered each second but didn't flinch from it. He carried it, controlled it, as if it were fuel. Then came the images, too fast, too sharp. A child torn from rubble, friends dying with his name on their lips, the gunfire, the silence between explosions that lasted forever. A whispered prayer in a language Kareth didn't recognize but somehow understood. "Hold the line," Kareth screamed, physically, audibly, in front of the entire delegation. The scream wasn't just fear, it was grief, awe, and something dangerously close to reverence. His knees buckled. He collapsed, clawing at his head, eyes wide and unfocused. The humans froze. The Velzari scrambled to reach him. Dignitaries backed away in horror, whispering curses and questions. Max didn't move, not until Kareth stopped thrashing and whispered in a voice like broken glass. He lived through that. Kareth was unconscious within seconds. His neural field, usually stable as starlight, was now a fractured prism. The healers couldn't make sense of it. He wasn't brain dead, but his mind flickered with images and emotions too dense for normal translation. Later, in a debriefing room under heavy security, one of the Velzari aides muttered the unthinkable. His mind broke on contact. The Terran delegation remained silent, stone-faced, but Sergeant Gray, leaning against the cold steel wall, finally spoke. "You were warned." Kareth remained in a neural coma for 3 standard cycles. The Velzar envoy's medbay became a fortress, guarded, sealed, not out of fear of an assassination, but of knowledge. What he'd seen in the human's mind wasn't simply memory, it was contagious. The scans of Kareth's brain showed a neural storm, a constant replay of what he experienced in Max Gray's psyche. Not just war, endurance, horror metabolized into clarity, violence fused to purpose. Alien scientists stared in disbelief. Even pain could be processed, stored, But this was something deeper. "It's not just trauma," whispered one medic. "It's something worse, something organized, something weaponized." On Earth, they called it PTSD. In the galactic archives, it had no name, because no other species had ever functioned through that kind of internal chaos. They collapsed. They self-destructed. They didn't survive it, let alone build civilization on top of it. But humans, they grew stronger. In the galley, the remaining Earth delegation sat in silence. Commander Rao, the diplomatic lead, was frustrated. "We told them not to touch," she muttered. "Now they'll think we did this intentionally." Max didn't respond. He was still watching, always watching. The walls, the exits, the air pressure. He didn't look like a killer, but every alien aboard knew now. The mind reader had opened the door and seen the abyss look back. Velzari officials demanded a full explanation. Earth's team sent files, historical battles, records of Earth's wars, first-hand accounts of trench warfare, orbital bombings, child soldiers, and ancient genocides, not as a threat, but as context. A human mind wasn't a single narrative. It was billions, stacked, lived, inherited. The Velzari High Council reviewed it all and issued a directive. Do not attempt neural contact with humans, ever again. But whispers had already begun in other delegations. If one human did that to Kareth, what could 10 do? Or 1,000? Are they immune to telepathy? Or do they trap us in their minds? The fear was growing, not of human weapons, but of their memories. Max was summoned, not formally. A silent escort of silver-armored guards arrived and made eye contact. He followed, quietly. Inside a sterile observation chamber stood Arch-Psychic Velith, the most senior telepathic analyst in the Velzari Empire. Taller than Max, adorned in ceremonial memory silk that shimmered with past visions. Her voice hummed with layered tones, meant to soothe. But Max didn't blink. "I will not read you," she said. "Wise. But I will ask, how do you survive with that inside your head?" Max tilted his head. "Same way you breathe through poison. You don't get used to it. You just decide to keep breathing." Velith hesitated. "Does it haunt you?" He looked at her, really looked, not with hostility, but with the worn, tired gaze of someone who had spent too long seeing people lie to themselves. "Yes, every day." Silence. Then she whispered, "And yet you remain whole." "No," Max replied. "That's where you're wrong." Back in the med bay, Kareth stirred. The monitors lit up. He whispered one word before lapsing back into silence. "Beautiful." Not in admiration, in horror. Because what terrified him most wasn't the pain. It was the fact that Max Gray had endured the worst imaginable torment and walked away not empty, but still capable of compassion, capable. Kareth didn't return to his former post. He couldn't. The Velzari called it mind collapse, a psychic overload rare among their kind, typically caused by ancient cursed artifacts or singularities, but never before by another being. Whispers spread like fire. The humans weren't just dangerous in war, they were dangerous to understand. Other species began avoiding even casual neural interactions with Earth's delegates. Hushed policy shifts rippled through embassies and alliance councils. Treaties slowed. Cultural exchange programs froze. Humans had long suspected their emotions were more turbulent than other species could handle. But no one expected this. That raw survival memory, unfiltered and human, could shatter a mind evolved over millennia. And yet Max remained quiet, always at the edge of rooms, always with the same haunted steadiness. He wasn't angry. He was waiting. Back aboard the diplomatic cruiser Helios Accord, Commander Rao debriefed Earth's council via secure quantum stream. Her words were clear, but her eyes betrayed it all. "They're scared of us now.
Not what we might do, but what we've already survived. The reply came after a long pause from the Council's defense advisor, General Halverson. Then we use it. You want to weaponize fear? No, Halverson said. We want them to listen. Weeks later, an emergency summit convened. A rogue empire, the Thrask Dominion, had begun amassing fleets near neutral systems. Dozens of species requested Earth's military advisors. For the first time, humanity wasn't the junior observer. It was the quiet figure in the corner everyone waited to speak. The Council of Nine turned to Max Gray. You've seen war, said a Zalari strategist. What would you do if Thrask forces entered orbit? Max didn't flinch. We'd lose civilians, at first. Then, we'd burn their sky. The room fell silent. Max continued, his voice low, calm, and terrifyingly sincere. We've fought enemies with more ships, more weapons. We've watched cities fall only to rise with teeth bared. We know how to suffer. But more importantly, he leaned forward. We know how to come back. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. In the shadows of the summit, Kareth listened. He had returned, not to serve, but to witness. The Velzari had granted him a new role, watcher of the human flame. His mind remained fractured. But a piece of him, perhaps the strongest, couldn't look away from the species that had shown him what it meant to break and still stand. He now wore a black-threaded sash. On it was a single symbol, a human skull, cracked but unbowed, encircled by fire, a warning, a tribute, a truth. That night, Max sat alone. He watched stars move in silence. When Rao approached, he asked her quietly, "Do you think we're monsters?" She paused. "We're survivors." He nodded slowly. "Same thing, depending on who's telling the story." She sat beside him. "Let them tell it. Let them whisper. Let them fear. And if they ever ask us again what we are?" Rao smiled, bitter and proud. "We tell them. We are what happens after the fire. We are the smoke that still remembers the spark." The war began not with a declaration, but with a silence too long. The Thrask Dominion crossed into neutral zones, vaporized supply convoys, and took entire moons hostage in 3 system jumps. While galactic powers debated semantics and precedents, Earth moved. Humanity didn't wait for consensus. They deployed the Ash Brigade. These weren't special forces, not officially, but among the veterans were names whispered even on alien worlds. Soul-blooded, the Crawlers, and Red Echo, soldiers born in gravity wells so brutal they made Thrask worlds seem soft. And at the head of the diplomatic council, Max Gray, no longer a quiet advisor, now a voice for the fire. The first clash was brutal. Alien allies watched as humans launched low-orbit drop pods without shielding, trusting nothing but velocity and sheer nerve. The Thrask underestimated them until their command ships began going dark one by one, never with survivors. Broadcasts intercepted human comms. One recording spread faster than any bullet. If they break your body, crawl. If they burn your home, dig. If they take your name, whisper it in the dust. And when you find your feet again, stand. And make them pay in fear. It wasn't military doctrine. It was human gospel. Kareth, the once fractured mind reader, now served as emissary for the Velzari Watch. His people had declared humanity an unclassifiable force, a rare designation, neither ally nor enemy. Just something to never underestimate. He watched Max give orders, never needing to shout. One soldier approached Kareth after a mission, a private, just 19 Earth years. Her armor cracked, face smeared with plasma soot. She offered him water. The alien flinched until she smiled and said, "It's clean. We always share." Kareth took it, hands trembling. The last time he'd accepted water from a human, he had glimpsed a storm of memories and collapsed. This time,
he drank. And for the first time since his psychic fracture, he saw only kindness. Even fire can be gentle, he realized, if it chooses to be. The war ended 6 months later, with the Thrask leadership executed not by Earth, but by their own generals, who had seen what humanity unleashed and refused to follow them into the abyss. Earth didn't demand tribute. They asked for unity and one promise. If another war comes, not of defense, but of conquest, we will not fight it for you. But if you fight beside us, we will never leave you behind. That was all. And yet, that speech, broadcast from the crater of a former Thrask command base, echoed across 1,000 worlds. Years passed. In academies, alien strategists studied Earth's tactics. Philosophers debated their morality. Psychics like Kareth recovered slowly, but never forgot the moment they touched the human mind and felt a history not of domination, but of endurance. And when alien children asked what humans were like, their teachers told them the truth. They're not gods, not devils. They're what walks out of the smoke when the rest of the galaxy would have given up. They don't always win, but they never stop, and they remember everything. The mind readers now call it the Spark Doctrine, a theory that perhaps the most dangerous species are not the strongest, but the ones who refuse to be broken, even when touched, even when seen, even when feared.